Hi everyone, it's Heather. Welcome back to my channel. I think I look even more sweaty than I did the last video that I made. It's even hotter. I read an article that said it was going to be this hot right through October, and if that's the case, then I think I'm probably going to have to move to, I don't know, the North Pole or something. This is just too hot for me to handle, but I can't have the fan on because the fan makes too much noise, so I've turned it off so I can make this video. It's made my hands very hot and sweaty as well, look. And I'm basically just melting while I talk to you. I do have a bottle of water, which occasionally I might have to drink, so I apologise for that in advance, but I'm sweltering here, so please bear with me. What I wanted to do today was I found on Instagram, bluesprucetarot posted 20 tarot questions that seem much better designed to be talked about rather than an actual Instagram channel. So I thought I would do that. I think she posted hers as a video on her Facebook page, I believe. But what I will do in the comments box below, I will link to her post on Instagram so that you can have a look for yourself. And I'll also include the 20 questions in the comments so that you can see that as well if you're interested. If anybody wants to share theirs, I'd love to see some video responses with people's own answers. I think for me it felt like a really great starter post and a really great way for me to kind of introduce myself from a tarot perspective for anybody who might be interested. So I'm just going to crack on. I've got them written down so I can read them off and we'll just see how we go. So the first question is, what was your first deck? Now I can't actually remember my first deck. I'm pretty sure I have had a couple of decks originally that I got rid of very, very quickly, that I bought because I liked them, and then I just struggled with them and I couldn't read them, and I kind of read them maybe once or twice and then I gave them away. But the first deck that I had that I kept was the Robin Wood Tarot, which I have here. Now I have trimmed mine. It did come with borders, but I'm not a fan of borders, so I took my borders off. This was my first attempt at trimming a deck as well, so they're not really, when you like put them together, they're not really straight. They're kind of all over the place. They still shuffle really well and you can't tell which card is which, but I did take the edges off. Another reason actually why I took the edges off is because my dog, I have a Yorkshire Terrier called Logan, and when he was a puppy, he chewed everything. Absolutely everything. And one of the things that he chewed was my tarot cards, and he chewed the edges of them. So it made sense to just take the edges off and continue to use them and tidy them up a bit. This was the first deck that I ever really started to read for myself with and ever really started to connect with. And I love it, and I do still use it occasionally, but not as much now that I've started to buy other decks. And then question 2 is, what made you stick with it? Which is a really good question, considering I gave so many away to start with. I think it's a really good question, and I'm not even sure I really know the answer, in that I'm not sure if it's something that I can necessarily put into words in a way that is going to explain it to someone else. I think I just really loved the artwork. You know, I really connected with a lot of the pictures. You know, even the ace, I really love the Ace of Cups. You know, you got your 10 of Swords. I think there was something about the colours, the artwork, the design of the cards. They've got a really pagan feel to them that just really, like, I don't know, it was the first deck that I had that I really felt like I could do this. I could learn to read these. The pictures tell a story. I can lay them out. And even if I haven't got a clue what I'm doing and I don't really understand the tarot, I can at least tell the story that the cards are showing. So I think probably it was just the first deck that I ever really connected with. So that's probably what made me keep them. Question 3, how often do you read? Well, because I do a daily card on my Instagram channel, which I draw and then I read. as a very general reading for anybody who might be following along and be interested in that. So I read, in that respect, I read every day. I also like to do readings for the new moon and readings for the full moon. I quite often, if there's a specific holiday or a celebration or like a big event, I tend to read for them. So I tend to do ones for all the Wheel of the Year, all the different festivals on the Wheel of the Year, all 8 of them. I also like to do one for the new year, you know, and I like to do one for my birthday. And I tend to do those differently. So the new year I tend to do a 12 monthly spread from January to December, and then for my birthday I have a particular birthday spread that I like to read as well. And occasionally I'll just like pick up a spread on Pinterest and I'll just think that looks really cool, that looks really interesting, let's give it a go. Sometimes I like to try out new spreads so that I can put them on my blog for anybody who might be interested in trying something new. So I read all the time. I have my cards out every day. And I do it, as I say, I do that daily reading every day, and then I probably read bigger readings a few times a week easily. I read my cards a lot. I do read them a lot. Do you read for yourself? Yes, is the short answer. I do. Mainly for myself at the moment, actually. I find reading for myself is a fantastic way to learn. I have a notebook, which I don't actually know where I've put it. It's in a pile of notebooks in the corner of the room, and it has all my readings in it. I put all my readings in there, write down each position, each card, how I've interpreted those cards. I date them. If there's a specific of astrological event or something, I might mark that on there as well. And then a few months later or 6 months later or whatever, I then like to go back and make some additional notes on that reading about how accurate I was. And I've just found that's a really, really, really good way to learn for me. I think I like going through all the cards, and you know, when you get new cards, they say to you, go through each card and read each card and write what each card tells you and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. But actually putting them into some kind of context was a much easier way for me to learn. So I do read for myself, and I do read for myself a lot. Question 5. Do you read upside down? I don't. When I first started reading the tarot, I didn't. It was a deliberate choice not to, because I thought that it would be easier for me to learn upright meanings first and get really, really comfortable with the upright meanings of the cards. And then once I was comfortable with the upright readings, the plan then was to start incorporating reverse readings into my readings. But I found that the more comfortable I got with the cards and the more that I learned about them and the more comfortable I got with reading them, the less I felt the need to actually read reverse cards, because I tended to find that, you know, with 78 cards, plus patterns, plus combinations, plus positions and spread, plus their connections with other cards, which would probably be combinations, to be fair, I found that there was so much information already in every reading, in every deck, in every card, that it just wasn't necessary. It was like superfluous information. It was, you know, I could kind of tell whether a card was its upright meaning or its reversed meaning by where it was in a spread, by what other cards were surrounding it, by, you know, how it connected to the question that I'd asked. So I kind of felt that reversals became unnecessary. Maybe I will try them in the future just to see if they add something to my readings, if there's something I'm missing, some level I'm missing that reversals would add in. But at the moment, I just feel like reversals just aren't necessary for me. So it's not something that I'm planning on incorporating anytime soon. Okay, question 6. What is your favourite and least favourite card? I have actually blogged about both of these cards, so if you're interested in reading my blog and seeing what I have to say about them in more detail, again, I will link it below so you can go and check that out if that's something you think you might like to read. But my favourite card is Strength. I love Strength. I love everything that Strength represents. I love the, you know, as I say, I work with the Divine Feminine, and this idea of empowerment and self-development, and for me the Strength card absolutely sums that up. She, to me, is the Divine Feminine. She is all about self-confidence, being in her own power, you know, not having to use brute force, but being able to use internal strength to control a situation. I love the Strength card. I love everything that the Strength card represents. It's also my life card. Is that what it's called? Your life card and my soul card? It's both. My personality card or whatever. I can't remember the actual terms that they use, but that's it anyway. It's my personal card, so that helps with that connection there, I think. My least favourite card, again, I have blogged about this card, is the Hierophant. There is something about the Hierophant that I just don't like. I just don't like him. I don't connect to him in any way. For me, he is, you know, conformity, tradition, spiritual authority. They're all ideas that I just rail against. I just, as a pagan, as a strong woman, as, you know, somebody who's very independent and very determined to go my own way and live my own path, the Hierophant represents everything that I kind of try to stand against, and he just, for me, is not a friendly card at all. I just don't like him. There's probably some work to do for me there personally around this card and why I have such a strong negative reaction to it. And it is something that's on my list of things that I need to think about and work on and unpick. But right now I'm just comfortable with the fact that I'm not comfortable with him. So there you go. What is your favourite spread? I don't often read with spreads, personally. I mean, I know I said I like to try new spreads, and I do, but I don't have any set spreads that I use. I don't have any set layouts that I have. Quite often when I've read for other people, I've done a very much just drawn some cards, like 5 or 6 cards with no spreads, no positions, and just kind of read what comes out for me. Having said that, I am a bit of a collector of things, and oh god, any excuse to use a notepad, like literally any excuse to use a notepad for something, and I'm there. I don't care. I'll make it work. So I have this one, which is my spreads notepad, which is where I am a little bit obsessed with Pinterest, as I said, and finding new spreads on Pinterest, and I will write them out in here. These are all the spreads that I've got that I like, that it's not very neat, my writing's not very neat, but that I tend to hold on to. Some that I've already tried, some I've found that I'd quite like to try but I haven't got around to trying yet. Some I've taken from what people have shared on Instagram or Facebook, and I will read these spreads. Sometimes I'll try these spreads out as well so that I can post them on my blog, as I said, to share them with people so that they can see the spread in a working context, because I think sometimes that helps when you can see how the positions translate. So quite often there's a few that I've shared on my blog as well. But as far as having a favourite goes, I haven't found one yet. I never say never, right? Never, you know, who knows what's around the corner. It may just be that the right spread for me I just haven't found yet. But as of right now, I don't really have a favourite. I just have lots of spreads that I like to try. And some of them I will use more than once. Some of them I have gone back and used again and seen where I am now compared to where I was when I read that spread maybe six months ago. But I don't have any favourites, and I'm more like a magpie. I like to collect stuff and then I'll try them out and then I'll collect new stuff and I'll try them out. I'm not really a, this is the thing for me, this is the spread, this is the one that I always use, this is my go-to. And I know I have friends who do. I have friends who always use the same spread for the full moon, always use the same spread for the new moon, always use the same spread at their birthday. And that works for them, and that's fantastic, but that's just not how I personally work. I like to try new things, and I like the new and the shiny and the never been tried before. How do you care for your deck? Well, I'm probably unusual, or I'm learning that I'm unusual in that respect, in that I don't necessarily. So these ones, so the Robin Wood ones I keep in a bag that my friend made for me. And that they just sit, all my decks sit on my bookshelf, unless that I'm using them and then they're out on my sofa because they're the ones I'm using that month. They sit on my bookshelf. Most of them stay within the boxes that they came in. So the Shadowscape one is in the box that it came in. The Everyday Witch one, again, is in the box that it came in, mainly because I love Llewellyn's boxes. Any that came in, like, not so sturdy boxes, I'll put in little bags and stuff. This came out of my bag. I carry a tarot deck everywhere, so this just came out of my work bag. As far as care for them, they're cards, you know? They're inanimate objects. I don't believe that they have any inherent power of their own. I think that they're cards. That's my standpoint on the subject. I just think they're a deck of cards. They're absolutely replaceable, in that if this deck of cards had got absolutely ruined by the dog, I could have just gone on Amazon or whatever and bought another set. It's, you know, it's not that big a deal to me. It would have been the same set of cards, it would have been the same pictures. I may have had to go through the whole process of, you know, trimming them again, but I'm not particular about my decks. They get shuffled to the point where they bend. They, not overly bent, because, you know, if you overly bend a card, you're always going to get that card come out because it's the bent card, and then what's the point? But I'm not somebody who is precious about my decks in any way. I don't think they have any inherent power of their own. I do believe that they are just bits of card, and that the message from them comes from me and my connection with the universe, and my psyche or whatever is making that connection, and all the picture is doing is giving my subconscious something to connect to. I don't necessarily believe the cards themselves have any kind of power, so that's a really long-winded way of saying I probably don't care for my decks. I don't put them out under the moon. I don't charge them on my altar. I don't do any kind of rituals with them when I get them. I don't sleep with them under my pillow. I don't wrap them in any kind of silk. I don't keep stones with them. They're a psychological tool. For me, the tarot is, more than anything, is a psychological tool. I look after them as much as I look after any other material object that I own and that I've either paid for or been gifted. But I don't treat them any differently than, say, a book that someone gave me. Because the power isn't in the cards, the power is in me, and the cards are just making that connection, helping me make that connection. So yeah. What do you get asked the most? Every reading that I've done for other people, and it's not a lot, bear in mind I've only been reading for about a year, and I've probably only been reading for others for, I maybe did my first readings for other people maybe November, December time. So I've only done about 30 or 40 readings for other people, and all the readings that I've done have been by email. I've not done a face-to-face reading. They've all been by email or by messenger for people. And I think every question's been different. I don't think I've ever had the same sorts of questions really come up. Probably the type of question that comes up most of the time is in some way connected to relationships or career or life journey, you know. So there are very much areas that people like to use the tarot to look at, relationships being one, career being another. But I don't think I've had the same questions come up over and over again. I don't think that's something that's happened yet. But, you know, we're talking statistics and numbers, and the numbers are really low. So statistically, it's not that unusual that I've had lots of different questions come up so far. I mean, ask me again when I've done 200 readings or 400 readings or 1,000 readings, and I'm sure I would answer that question very differently. But right now, with only like 30, 40 readings under my belt, there isn't one question that stands out for me at this stage. Question 10. What would a deck made by you look like? Wow. Wow. That's a good question. So it would either be really fluffy and pink and girly and My Little Pony, which by the way is the t-shirt that I have on today, and you know, very much like your Crystal Unicorn Tarot or your Happy Tarot type deck, or it would be like the other extreme and it would be really dark, or brainwave, it would be the juxtaposition of both, like that really light, happy, fluffy, girly, twee, yeah, horses and unicorns and mermaids and wow, with that really dark undertone. How cool would that be? That would be really cool. That would be really cool. Or it would be a horror-related deck. I did have this idea that I wanted to make like a deck where every card was somehow connected to a horror film or a horror character, not just necessarily hammer horror, but you know, all kinds of horror. So like the strength card that I was talking about before, when I talk about it in my blog, one of the things I talk about in my blog is that the strength card for me absolutely represents the final girl in a horror film. Like if I was going to connect it to a horror film, that's the connection that I would make. And I would love to be able to make a deck that connects to the horror genre in some way, not just, you know, the old hammer horror and your Dracula and your your vampires and your werewolves and your mummies and stuff, but like real modern horror too, like real slasher, your Blair Witch type stuff, your, I don't know, just everything. I love horror. I love horror. So that would be, I'd want some element of horror in there somewhere, I think. Little old brain is ticking away, filing that away for another day. What was the weirdest thing you've been asked? I mean, everybody's normal is somebody else's weird, right? My normal is a lot of other people's weird, and I get that. So I try not to look at the questions with that judgment of normal, weird, blah. I think the most interesting question I've ever been asked is, who is my soulmate? And I'd only been reading for a little while, and I was asked this question by someone, I don't know, a complete stranger who'd found me through Instagram. I was offering free readings for practice. They'd found me through Instagram. I knew nothing about them. I didn't even know their real name. I only had their Instagram account name. And they asked me who is my soulmate. And I was a bit, I don't know. I don't know anyone you know. I don't know how I would answer that question. So, and how I dealt with it then is probably not how I would have dealt with it now. So how I dealt with it then, being very, very new and very unsure of myself, my response was very much, I can't answer that question. It's not, you know, I'm not psychic. I'm not. I don't pretend to be. I'm not psychic. That's not how I work with the cards. I don't know the answer, but I'll answer a different question for you if you like, about something else. I think if I was faced with that question now, I would probably give a very similar answer in that, unfortunately, I'm not psychic and it's not within my power to give you that information. However, let's work together to rephrase that question in a way that's going to give you some value and, you know, and is not going to give your power away. Because for me, the tarot should be about empowering people in their lives. And I don't want to just send people away and say, you know, stupid question, don't know how to answer that, go and speak to a medium or something, I don't know, or a clairvoyant or whatever, whoever would be best to answer that question. Now I'd much rather work with someone and say, okay, there's obviously something underlying under that question that's bothering you, or that's important to you, or that you really feel like you need to know. So let's look at that. Let's figure out a way to rephrase that question to give you the information that you're really looking for. And that's probably how I'd approach it now. Whereas at the time I was like, whoa, I don't know. Yeah. Not my finest moment. But, you know, we all start somewhere and we all have to learn. It's a learning curve, right? What is your biggest pet peeve in tarot? Okay. This is not going to win me any friends. I am aware of that. But fuck it. Excuse my French. I'm going to put it out there anyway. So, I went to a talk recently from somebody who's read the tarot for a long time, and I absolutely respect their experience. But they basically, at the beginning of their talk, where they were giving a workshop to complete beginners, people who'd never touched the tarot in their life, their opening statement, if you like, was anybody can read the tarot. You don't need to know anything about the tarot whatsoever. You don't even really need the tarot to read the tarot. The tarot is just there to open you up to the spirit. You could read this deck without ever knowing a single thing about tarot. And I was like, but okay. I have to disagree. Now, that's something that I see people told a lot. Throw away the books, throw away Google, throw away this, throw away that. Don't listen to other people. Don't read, you know, don't find out about this. Don't find out about that. The tarot is all about you and your connection with the tarot and your intuition and your understanding. And I'm like, what the hell? Seriously, the tarot is a language, people. It's a specific language. The Rider-Waite system was designed with each card telling a specific set of information. There are rules. If you say anybody can read the tarot, no one has to learn the tarot, then what's the point in having the tarot? You know? So yes, you can read the cards. Of course you can read the cards without ever learning a single thing about the tarot. But then what you're doing is cartomancy. It's not tarot reading. It's not. The tarot is a language, and you have to respect the language and you have to learn the language to be able to say that what you're doing is reading tarot. Now, that's not to say once you know the rules, you can't break the rules, but you need to know the rules first. So yeah, that's, for me, That's my biggest pet peeve. When people say, and he's not the only person I've heard say it, you know, but when people say intuition is everything and you don't need to know a single thing about the history of the tarot, about the meaning of the tarot, you don't need to understand why the Rider-Waite-Smith system was designed the way that it was, you don't need to understand numerology or, you know, any of the other stuff, what the aces really mean, what the wands really mean. You never need to read a single book or take a single workshop or even Google a single card. You can just do tarot from here. I'm sorry. I disagree. I just disagree. And it bugs me when that's the thing, that's what's being peddled to people. And that, you know, I get that everybody has their own take. And if that's your bag and that's how you want to do tarot, then fine. But it is a peeve. It is a pet peeve of mine. It does bug me. So yeah. So there you go, I said it. It's out there now. Bring on the hate. But it is what it is. Do you have any bad tarot habits? Sometimes. Like sometimes. Yeah. It does depend. It does depend. If I'm having a really, like, meh day, and I think, oh, I'll draw some tarot cards. So I shuffle, and I draw some cards, and I immediately can see what those cards are telling me. But I don't like it, and I'm having a bad day anyway, and I don't want to listen to that bad rubbish. I don't want to listen. I'm not in the mood. I will just put the cards back and reshuffle and draw more. Doesn't always work in my favour, because I'll draw more and I'll get 3 different cards giving me exactly the same message. But I have been known to do it more than once. So I think that's, you know, that's a pretty bad habit, actually. Especially when you know, right? You know what the tarot is telling you, and you think, nah, no, I don't want to hear that today. And you just put them back and reshuffle them like that's going to help. But yeah, so that's probably a bad habit. I'm sure I probably have more. Like, bad habits are my bag. I'm good at bad habits, but I can't think of any right now. So, so yeah, that's probably one. And sometimes as well, I'll start doing a spread and I'll start writing it out, and I won't really like where the spread is going, so I'll just like rip the page out and put it in the bin and put the cards away and just pretend it never happened. Which also is probably not a particularly great habit to have. Mainly they're about, I don't like this message, I don't want to hear it, I'm just going to pretend it didn't come up. That's my bad habit. So yeah. Do you get hate from skeptics or religious folk? No. I'm going to have some water, bear with me. No. No, I don't. Like, if religious people and skeptics are going to hate on me, it's not going to be for my choice of tarot. It's more going to be for my spirituality and my personal beliefs and my pagan path first. You know, when they find out that I'm into witchcraft, that I work with female deities and absolutely believe that those deities exist as individual beings in their own right, and you know, that stuff. I think tarot is probably going to be the last thing that they're concerned about. But weirdly, I'm sat here, you know, talking to you, and I have this YouTube channel and anybody can watch it. It's public. Anybody can come along and watch this. It's not really something that I talk about on a day-to-day basis. I mean, people know I'm not secretive about it. I've got an Instagram account and I have friends that follow me. I've got a Facebook page and I have friends that follow me. My parents are very aware of my spiritual beliefs, and as much as they they can be without it getting all too deep and weird for them, bless them. And they are aware that I read tarot and stuff, but it's not like I don't go out with a sign on saying, hey guys, I read tarot and I'm a witch and I practice magic and I believe in the possibility of controlling your own destiny through burning shit in cauldrons or whatever. It's not a thing. Like, it's not a thing. I don't hide it, but I don't talk about it either. And I don't really know any strong religious people or any strong skeptics, for want of a better way of phrasing that. So I don't really know anybody who's so invested in their religion or so invested in their skepticism that I'm somehow a threat to them. Because that's what it is, right? If somebody attacks you for your personal beliefs or your personal choices or your personal practices, it's got to be because in some way you threaten their personal beliefs and their personal choices and their personal practices. And I don't really know anybody who feels threatened by me in any way. So it's not really an issue I've ever had. I'm like the least threatening person, I guess. I don't know. But no, I don't get any hate. I haven't yet. Again, this is my second video and the first video that really talks about in any way my tarot or stuff, but I've not had any yet. I did have a guy on Instagram all of a sudden started quoting Bible stuff and talking about Jesus on all of my posts. He never really engaged with me. It was never hateful or anything. He just kind of would randomly post, I choose Jesus and I find love in the connection with Jesus Christ and stuff. And I was like, okay, no, that's good. That's nice, but you know what? This is my space. Do you remember MySpace? It wasn't MySpace, it was Instagram. But this is my space, and I get to decide what's talked about and what isn't talked about in my space. And, you know, if you want to have an actual conversation with me, I'm all up for that. But if you just want to start coming on and posting random Bible quotes and random statements, then, yeah, see you later. So yeah, I did block him. Do you have any readings you're proud of? Can I just say all of them without sounding like a total arrogant tool? Is that possible? Like, now I only say that because I think about where I was 12, 13 months ago and how I've got the biggest spot on my forehead. I'm sorry if my spot on my forehead is winking at you. Anyway, like I think about where I was 12 to 13 months ago and I had no faith in my ability whatsoever. None. And the thought of ever being able to do a tarot reading for someone else was just way outside of what I ever thought I would be capable of. So every time I read for someone, excuse me, and every time I get good feedback, I get positive feedback, I get, you know, the kind of feedback that's encouraging and encouraging to me in that, you know, you've really hit the nail on the head, that's really spot on, you've really inspired me, you've really helped me. I'm proud of that because I'm proud of the journey that I've been on and I'm proud of how far I've come from where I was a year ago. And if you could see the person that I was a year ago and the fear that I had of any, you know, of just putting myself out there in front of other people in any way, you would understand. You would understand what I'm saying. I mean, this here today, sitting in front of you right now, a year ago just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened. I'd have been so terrified of your judgment and just, you know, making a fool of myself that I just never would have even have taken the risk. So to be able to actually put myself out there and provide people with tarot readings, I'm proud of that every single time I do it. And every single person who reads tarot for other people and puts themselves out there every single time should be proud of themselves, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It really isn't easy. It's terrifying sometimes, and it makes you feel incredibly vulnerable. And it's scary that this person is relying on you so much, so much. You know, they've come to you for a reason and they're relying on you, and you are willing to put yourself out there. We should all be proud of that all the time, I think. As long as every time you do a reading for someone, you can walk away knowing that you've done the best that you possibly could and you've given that person 100% of yourself, then you should absolutely be proud of that. And I am proud of it every time I do it. I got a little bit viva, you know, viva la revolution. So yeah, sorry. But I strongly believe that. Has reading changed your perspective? It's a very long pause, and I don't know how to edit on my phone, so I don't know how to edit at all. So I'm gonna have to keep that really long pause in. So I apologise for that. Sometime in the future I will learn how to edit, and you will never have to sit through a long pause again. But for now, you're just gonna have to suck that up, because I don't know how to take it out without taking out everything that follows it. All I know is how to take off the beginning and the end. I don't know how to cut stuff out of the middle. So, sorry. Changed my perspective. I'm not sure I understand the question. Like, has a specific reading changed my perspective of the situation? I mean, yeah, every time, every single time. That's why we do them, right? To get a different perspective, to get a perspective that we're maybe not seeing or we're not aware of, or for whatever reason we're ignoring even though we are aware of it. So maybe not change, but every reading that I do gives me a different perspective to the one that I go into the reading with. Every reading I do for myself, you know, when I read for other people, most of the time it's people I don't know, so I don't necessarily have a perspective to start with. But for every reading I do for myself, definitely is about having a different perspective. In terms of has learning to read and working with tarot changed my perspective on a wider scale, on like a life spiritual scale, it's really hard to say. I mean, in the last 12 to 13 months since I started working with tarot, I've also found that my spiritual path and my spiritual direction, which was going this way quite nicely, and I knew where I was going and I thought I knew what I was doing, has suddenly gone this way and has completely changed direction and looks nothing like it did 12, 13 months ago. Are the two related? Is there a cause and effect thing there? I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if they both happened independently of each other, but they just both sort of started happening at the same time, or if me opening myself up to the tarot and opening myself up more to my intuitive side and my subconscious and my connection to other, if you know, or wherever these messages are coming from, has also therefore opened me up to this whole new spiritual journey that I'm on at the moment. I don't know. I'd like to know, and I will certainly have to think on that a bit more, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the two are connected or not. Do you prepare a space or ritual before reading? I do not. I probably should, but I don't. I live in the tiniest flat. I mean, it's not tiny, actually. For a one-bedroom flat, it's actually pretty big, but there's not a lot of space. So I do my readings here, on my sofa, with my laptop. As I say, most of my readings are email readings, so they all happen in this little space that I have here, and where everything happens in this section of my sofa. I don't really have the room to do anything bigger than that. In terms of space, I have an altar, but my altar is, it is a working altar, but it's not, it's over there, which is why I'm looking over there. It's not conducive to doing full tarot readings on. There's not that kind of space. There's enough space to do a little bit of, you know, spell work or devotional work or whatever, but nothing, you know, anywhere close to a proper tarot reading. Ritual-wise, I mean, it depends on your definition of ritual. So I always do my tarot readings for other people in very much the same way. I always shuffle the cards in the same way. I always cut the cards in the same way. I always draw the cards in the same way. I turn them over in the same way. I always follow the same step process. So I take a picture of the cards, I open, you know, I email them to myself, I open a Word document, I put the pictures in, and then I do it, you know, I look at the cards and I type up my reading. And so in that respect, what I'm doing is a ritual. It's the same repetitive process every single time I do a reading. So in that respect, yes, that is a ritual in and of itself. It's a repetitive set of actions. If you mean ritual in terms of casting circles, lighting candles, calling quarters, calling in spirits, that kind of thing, then no, I don't. I don't feel that it's necessary. I don't feel that the tarot is necessarily part of my spiritual stuff. It's more, like I said earlier, more of a psychotherapy, psychological tool than a spiritual tool. Although it's, you know, and then I talk about opening up to spirit and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very convoluted belief system that I have around the tarot at the moment, which I'm still trying to figure out for myself. But it's not something that I've felt necessary to do, is to have any kind of ritual process to start with. No. How do you feel about the tarot community? I fucking love it. I fucking love it. Like, they are the coolest bunch of people, right? I mean, you've got Instagram, you've got this place on YouTube, you've got Twitter, which I don't really know how to use, but I do have a Twitter account, I just don't know how to use it. You've got Facebook, you've got, and when I'm talking about Facebook, I don't mean like Facebook pages, because they're not really a great way necessarily for the community to connect, but you've got Facebook groups, the, you know, Tarot Nerds, Three of Cups community, you've got the Tarot Readers Academy that Ethne runs. You've just got so much good stuff out there, so many people who are so willing and to support each other and to help each other and to push each other and to provide each other with information, and nobody ever seems like they're in competition with anyone else. Everybody is so supportive of everybody else's journey, whether that be a personal journey or, you know, a more business related journey that they might be going on or whatever. It's just such a fab bunch of people. I genuinely love the tarot community, online community. I don't really have a tarot offline community, but the tarot online community I genuinely love from the bottom of my heart. I love you all 100%. I really do. Do you have any advice for your younger self? In respect of the tarot, I'm guessing, as it's 20 tarot questions. See, I don't really go in for the advice for your younger self thing, because I think life is a journey and we are where we are because of where we were. And if my younger self hadn't been the person that they were, and hadn't made the choices that they'd made, and hadn't done the things that they'd done, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be in this position. And maybe I would be further along than where I am now, or maybe I would have gone on a completely different journey altogether. I don't know, but I am who I am because of who I was. So if I was gonna give any advice to my younger self, it would be keep doing what you're doing, because we turn out okay, actually. You know, it could have been worse. Actually, we turned out pretty okay. And we get where we need to be. Eventually, we get where we need to be. So just keep doing what you're doing, I think, would be the advice that I would give my younger self. And the final question, do you have any advice for novices? I kind of still feel like a novice myself. So it's hard. It's really hard to give advice to people who are novice, is when you feel like you're a novice for yourself, because it kind of feels inauthentic to say, you know, I'm still learning, I'm still at the beginning of my journey, but hey, let me give you some advice who's also at the beginning of their journey, because I clearly know better. But I think if I went back to, you know, what I was maybe saying earlier was, you are going to get people who tell you, don't read the books, throw away the books, throw away Google, don't trust what you read, it's all about you, it's all got to come from in here. If that works for you, great. If that doesn't work for you, ignore it. Just ignore it. You do you. You figure out how you best learn, how it works for you, what you need to do to figure out how to read and how to become a competent, confident reader, and you do you. That would be my advice. Don't throw away the books necessarily. Don't get rid of the Google necessarily. Just do you. And then you can't really go wrong, because you know you better than anyone else, even if it doesn't always feel like you do. So that was it. That was question number 20. I hope that you enjoyed my rambles. I am a rambler. I do like a good ramble. I do. I like to talk. I like to have those moments where I pause, where I just kind of look up into space, like, what should I say now? Yeah. You either get it or you don't, right? You either get me or you don't. I hope you get me. I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope I get to see you all again soon for another video. I'm really enjoying making them, so hopefully long may they continue. Take care. Best of love. Bye-bye.